Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. I'm your host, Pete Pardo, and my co-host in the captain's chair, Mr. Rich Catino. Welcome, Rich. How are you today?
Evening. What's up? I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing all right. We're talking Vincent Price, so I'm doing pretty damn good because I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Yeah, so am I. And for once, we're not talking on a stormy, rainy night.
No, that's right. No rain outside, no wind. It's pretty damn
Right.
chilly, though. I will say that here in New York.
Yeah.
I actually ventured outside on lunch hour today to go exercise a little bit, and it was like a brisk, like 42 degrees. I was like, getting a little cold to be doing this outdoorsy stuff, I think, but got to
get the vitamin D. Got to get the vitamin D going, you know?
Got to get the vitamin D, got to get the heart pumping because let me tell you something. It has been hard to stay motivated and keep active during COVID. So any little thing you can do, even if it's like 20 minutes, a half hour a day, it's got to do it. Got to do it.
Yep.
So especially because if at night all we're doing is watching horror movies, you know, so.
Yeah. And they say good health is the thing to fight it. So that's the way to go.
Absolutely. So today, Rich and I are each going to bring you a triple feature of terror. We've each picked out, so you're going to get 6 actually, 3 from each of us. We've each picked out 3 Vincent Price classics to talk about and recommend to you. I need to get that collection. Is that the Blu-ray collection? Or is it the old DVD?
Yes, it's an excellent collection. Yep.
Yeah, I need to get that. So what's in that?
This has got the Pendulum, the Mask of the Red Death, the Haunted Palace, the Fall of the House of Usher, the Abominable Dr. Phibes, and Witchfinder General. I mean, you got 6 golden movies right there.
Yeah, I need to get that. They didn't make a lot of those because I think there's 3 volumes so far, and like 1 or 2 of them are like you can hardly get. They're like they're out of print. But yeah, that's those are the ones to get.
Is it still available at Screen Factory? Have you tried?
I haven't gone directly. That's what I should do. Yeah, Screen Factory is great.
Yeah. Yes, and they put this out. Yep. Yeah.
And they're not that expensive, which is good. Yeah, because I have most of my Vincent Price collection. I've got so many of these, without giving my picks away here, the Midnight Movie double features on DVD.
Yeah.
I got almost everything I have are those. So it's great because you get, 2 movies in each set, but, it's DVD. These transfers are already kind of old. And I mean, I don't know about you, but a lot of these, Screen Factory and all these other Blu-ray companies who are remastering and re-releasing in high definition on Blu-ray, 4K sets. And I mean, these films look amazing. Considering
they do, you get these nice booklets with mini posters in it and summaries of the making of the movies.
Yep, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, nicely done, and the prints are really good. The only time they're maybe a little pixelated is maybe when they go to like a matte painting or something that's inserted in the movie.
Yep.
But all the shots that are shot on location, and everything look pretty incredible.
Yeah, and the costumes and all that stuff. Really good. Whether it's an old Roger Corman flick or an Amicus flick or Tygon or whatever, or AIP. I mean, because Price worked with all sorts of different studios, all really classy productions on all of these, and good stuff. So I'm going to have Rich kick us off with his first choice for today.
All right, so going with the Abominable Dr. Phibes.
Great film.
Which stars Vincent Price. So the plot summary of this is Dr. Anton Phibes is a famous concert organist and an expert in theology and music, and is thought to have been killed in a car crash in 1921 while racing home upon hearing of the death of his wife, Victoria, during surgery. So this movie picks up where he's not really dead, and he's trying to get revenge on the doctors who killed his wife. So throughout the movie, it's almost kind of like a Phantom of the Opera meets like Dr. Frankenstein almost.
Yeah.
Because he has his own lab. He has a lab, and he's doing all these concoctions and making these apparatuses so he can kill all these doctors and pick them off one by one throughout the story. And he does it pretty creatively too. Like he uses bats to kill somebody. He uses crickets. He uses rats. Do you remember those scenes?
Oh yeah.
and he has prosthetics on his face. His face has been disfigured in this car accident that he had. So he's hiding his real face under his prosthetic face, which looks like him, but you can tell he's wearing makeup and he's wearing prosthetics. So it's it's an interesting movie. It's like Phantom of the Opera meets like Dr. Frankenstein, because he plays the piano throughout the movie, and there's segments in between the death scenes where he's in like this homemade home, which looks like a Broadway theater or something, right?
Yep.
He's at the piano, he's playing the piano, and he's talking to the portrait of his girlfriend, his wife, that's on the wall, and he's telling her what he wants to do, and he has a voice thing that's stuck into his neck in order for him to talk, because he's been damaged or banged up pretty bad. He's actually supposedly dead. He's supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
You think he's really alive, but he's like he's a zombie.
It's a really intelligent film and a really quirky and fun film too. And I think it's a great performance by him. It's so over the top. I mean, that's the thing about Vincent Price. He's just, at times he's so over the top, but that's what you love about him.
Right.
And he can be really hammy.
Yeah, but it's not quirky where it's silly or stupid.
No, not at all. Yeah.
It's so weirdly done, where it's like, he's at the piano and then he's making experiments and then he's out trying to kill somebody. And the police investigators are trying to figure out, piece this all together with the doctors as they get picked off one by one.
Yep.
It's really an odd direction for a film, but it actually works for it though.
Yeah. And and the sequel is a lot of fun too. It's a shame that the sequel is not in that set.
I have to watch it again. Is it really good? I don't remember.
It's not as good as the original, but it's fun. It is fun. I like it. And I really wish the sequel was in that box set.
Yeah. I don't like when they break up stuff. Sometimes they break up stuff like that when they do these sets.
Yeah.
But this, if you get The Fall of the House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum, The Mask of the Red Death, and The Haunted Palace all together, that's great right there.
And you throw Witchfinder General in there, The Conqueror Worm, it's like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So what's interesting, in that film again, and this is the story where this element is prevalent in a lot of these films that he starred in, where he goes and he gets disfigured and then he goes on to get his revenge and he starts picking off people who wrong. I mean, so many of these films have a very similar plot line. We're going to revisit it in right now actually on mine. So, and then I have another one too. So my first choice is from what year was this again? 1953. So this is House of Wax.
It's a good one. Very good
one.
Now,
maybe it's just me, but hasn't like The Mystery of the Wax Museum or House of Wax been remade like more times in cinema history than any other story? I mean, there have been so many versions of this. So many.
Really? I only remember two of them. One had Paris Hilton and maybe there was one other one. They're the only two I remember.
The very, very first, this is actually a remake of the what's it called? Mystery of the Wax Museum. And that starred, oh man, I'm drawing a complete blank here. Bear with me, everybody. Mystery of the Wax Museum, Lionel Atwill, right? Is it Lionel Atwill? Yeah, Lionel Atwill and Fay Wray from King Kong. So that was the original film, and that was released in 1933. So 20 years later, they released this. Then they released, there's another movie called Terror of the Wax Museum. Then there was the one you're talking about in the 2000s, which, just took the storyline and made it really brutal. Kind of like, The Hills Have Eyes and a lot of these other remakes and what have you. But there have been so many wax museum films over the course of cinema history. It's crazy. But this is one of my favorites, actually. And
it's very good.
So not only do you have Vincent Price in here, right? But you also have Carolyn Jones. You may remember Carolyn Jones from The Munsters. She played Lily Munster, okay? And then you almost don't even recognize her, right? Which is really weird. And then the coolest addition to this cast here is a really, really young Charles Bronson, who plays the deaf-mute Igor assistant to Vincent Price, his character in here. And it's like, it doesn't even look like him. He doesn't have a mustache, and he's completely jacked. I mean, Charles Bronson, when he was younger, was like a bodybuilder. And he's just like, his arms are like, like enormous. I'm like, holy crap. And it's just weird seeing him without the mustache, because you always know him to have the mustache. But anyway, the story of this goes, so Vincent Price and his partner, they have this wax museum that used to be really popular. The popularity is kind of dying down. It's losing money. So his partner wants to get him to sell. Right. And Vincent Price is the one who actually creates all the wax figures. He's really into it. He's like, no, we can't sell. We can't sell. So his partner actually knocks him out and sets fire to the place, because he figures, let's burn the place down. I'll collect the insurance money. I can go off and do whatever the hell I want. Right. So in the process, Vincent Price's character obviously trying to fight him not to do it. He goes and douses him with gasoline, right? And then lights the whole place on fire and figures the place is going to burn down. My partner's going to be dead. I'll collect the insurance money. Done, right? But little do we know, Vincent Price survives the fire. He's of course disfigured. And what does he then do? He then goes to get revenge on the ex-partner, which he does. And then he goes and declares himself, not dead, right? And he opens up another wax museum. But what does he do? He goes out. He basically, he is disfigured. He uses the wax on himself to make himself look normal. But he's in a wheelchair. Really, meanwhile, he's really actually kind of fine, other than the disfigurement. And he goes out and kills people to then take their images to make them into the wax figures that are in. That's why when he reopens in a new place, people are like, oh my God, they look so real and all this kind of stuff. Well, it's because they're all based on people he killed, right? So really cool film. And the whole ending scene is great when they finally figure out that something's gone awry here. But again, that whole Phantom of the Opera type of thing is very prevalent in this as well. And it's amazing how influential the Phantom of the Opera storyline is to a lot of these movies. So there's a lot of similarities between Dr. Phibes and this, and one of the films I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But really entertaining, big, colorful film, and great acting. Price is awesome in this as well. And it's always kind of cool to see him lurking around, with the disfigured face and everything like that, and the hat and the cloak. It's kind of like a mix between like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Phantom of the Opera, and Jack the Ripper. Kind of weird, right? But very cool film. I'm a big fan. This is my favorite of the wax films, and it's a absolute classic of Vincent Price.
He's so good at being dramatic and dark and paranoid and all those like different emotions. He puts it in all these movies.
But he can also be very debonair and very classy too, right?
Right. Yeah. And all these movies are like that too. I was going to say that the dialogue, the clothing, the way they just speak to each other, it's just very proper and very fancy and very formal. Even when they sit down to dinner, like in dinner scenes.
Yeah.
It's like the old black and white movies, but updated for like color movies. Absolutely. Very classic.
Yep. Yeah. So good stuff. All right. What do you got for your number two?
2, The Pit and the Pendulum. Love the locations. Such great locations in this one, with the castle and the dungeon, with the pit and the pendulum in it. And then you get some nice images inside this booklet if you get the box set. So and it's got one of the coolest posters too. Did you ever see the poster art in a while? Have you seen it in a while?
Yeah.
It's on the Wikipedia page. I'm looking at it. It's got the pit and the pendulum, the thing swinging. Very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And the costumes in this film are just amazing too.
Yeah, this was set in Spain, right? Because this is the Spanish Inquisition. This is where the pit and the pendulum comes from.
Yep.
Because Vincent Price's character, his father was the person that used to use this pit and pendulum to torture people. So the story is Vincent Price's character lives in the castle, and I got to think now. I just saw it. Was his wife or it was his wife, right? That passes away.
Yeah.
Yes, it was his wife. Yeah. It was his wife because the brother of the wife comes to the castle to find out why his sister died. So, she passes away. She's in the castle, and the brother doesn't know why she passed away. So he comes easier to figure this out. So they tell you the whole backstory, how Vincent Price's father was from the Spanish Inquisition, and he would torture people in the basement. So they bring the brother down there to see the basement, and you see all the torture devices, the rack. There's an Iron Maiden in there too. Remember that?
Yeah.
So, so the whole story revolves around the brother trying to figure out why the sister passed away. But it's kind of, if you've seen the House on Haunted Hill, the plot is kind of familiar to that, because it's a little bit about madness. It's a little about revenge, right? And there's a little bit of a twist to it as well. Without, I can't give too much away. Barbara Steele's in it as well, and she's in it as well. Barbara Steele's from Black Sunday, or Black Sunday, right?
Black Sunday, yep.
Okay, another Black Sunday, another famous horror movie. So she's in this as well. I can't tell you what her part is, but she's in the story. So it goes throughout this whole, exploring Vincent Price's like mental state throughout the whole movie. That's really a big focus on it, and how he's weeping for her loss, but he's also struggling with the past of his family in the castle and what he saw when he was a child. Do you remember that, when they showed the flashback to when he's in the castle and he sees his father using the torture devices? So it's the whole mental impact on Vincent Price's character.
Yeah, he's scarred from his whole upbringing. Yeah.
Right. And the brother that comes to find out what happened to Barbara Steele's character, who is the wife of Vincent Price, who passed away. And then when you get to the ending, you get the reveal of what really is going on with the story.
Yeah.
And a little bit of the torture chamber too. They use a little bit of the torture chamber as well. So really nice locations. The castle's great. When they go into the pit, into the pendulum with all the spider webs, and you see all the torture devices all over the place, it's really well done, really well shot. And the story like flows real nice. You start piecing things together as you get towards the climax. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And, again, for the time, obviously, I think a lot of the Poe themes are shocking no matter when you watch them, when they produce these films.
Yeah.
And
really well done. The clothing's very high end, very well done.
Yeah, they had a little bit of budget for this film.
Yeah, I would say, geez, the gowns and everything.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good one. I love that one. All the ones he did right around that time are all really, really good.
Yeah, Fall of the House Usher, The Haunted Palace. But it's not like a horror movie where you're thinking of it's like a slasher movie or anything. This is before that. This is like psychological drama with a little bit of horror moments, throughout it. There's a cool corpse in it. You remember the corpse that's in the coffin? Yeah. That looks really cool.
Yeah.
So there's little moments of that, but it's not like as special effect heavy as you would think.
Yeah, it's more chilling, right? Chills and thrills type of thing with a bit of the macabre. Yeah. It's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, you could arguably say none of these films are straight on horror films, but they kind of are, because they have a lot of horrific elements, right? They're all like thrillers. I mean, even my next choice is it's funny because I think I don't remember which magazine or whatever listed this as like number 10 in the top 100 greatest horror films of all time. I'm talking about Witchfinder General. Mm-hmm. All right, so this is from 1968. This is a Tygon film.
That's in this set.
Yep. Probably, arguably, my favorite Vincent Price film.
Yeah.
And he plays a complete scum in this movie. And he does that very well.
In all these movies, he does.
Yeah, pretty much. There's very few of them where he plays like a sympathetic character, right? But definitely not in this one. So he actually plays Matthew Hopkins, who is a famous, kind of religious nut, but more importantly, he would scour the countryside to find all of the people who were dabbling in witchcraft. And then, of course, the way to deal with that, the Lord's way is to eliminate them, right? So basically, with little proof and no no courts, no anything like that. You just, okay, so we've got a rumor that you're dabbling in witchcraft. Admit it. If you don't admit that you did it, you're going to die. Or even if you do admit, you're going to die. If you don't admit, you're going to die, right? Like, in other words, absolve your soul to the Lord, and then we're going to get rid of you. That's basically
This is when you're guilty before proven innocent.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Throw all that other stuff out the window, right? That was not happening back then.
Yep.
But, you know, and basically that's this movie. So the main characters, you've got this young girl and her fiance who's in the army. He's fighting because there's a civil war going on at the time. And she's living with her uncle, or her adoptive uncle. And the uncle is a pastor. And of course, you know, Matthew Hopkins hears word that the uncle has been dabbling in witchcraft. So that's how the whole thing starts. So Vincent Price, you know, Matthew Hopkins and his cronies show up at the church, and they imprison the uncle, and they want him to admit that that he is a witch and he's dabbling in witchcraft. But of course, Vincent Price's character, Matthew Hopkins, is taking a liking to his young niece, who, and again, you know, Matthew Hopkins, Vincent Price's character in this film, has got to be what, in his 60s, and this young lady is probably, maybe she's 20. So so he works out a deal with her that he will keep the uncle alive as long as she agrees to rendezvous with him in the evenings. So that's kind of going on. She feels really bad because she's engaged to the young guy in the army, but she wants to keep her uncle alive, right? So eventually the story kind of goes on that, you know, he's out terrorizing the countryside, killing all these people accused of witchcraft, and probably none of them were involved with that stuff. But then eventually the fiance comes home from the war, and finds out what's going on. So this leads to all sorts of craziness. The climax is amazing. You know, the big battle between the Witchfinder, you know, the Conqueror Worm, right? That's the other American title for this film. But Matthew Hopkins.
I never understood that. I don't get it. The Conqueror Worm.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of like Witchfinder General. That kind of, you know, that makes total sense. I don't know why they changed that here in the States, but whatever. Yeah. But the big climax between Hopkins and his crew and the young guy fresh from the army and the fiance to get her out of captivity, because by this time she's now captured as well. Great climax to the scene, to the film. And of course, you know, this is one of the, without giving it too much away, you know, the bad guy gets his just rewards here. So really cool film. I think, if for nothing else, if you like films that have to do with kind of like witchcraft, or, you know, there's actually no witchcraft going on in the film, but it's all implied, right? But this guy is just such a bad dude. He's you know, and he's not interested in doing anything by the law. He actually takes the law into his own hands, right? Because there's no like police doing this stuff. He's basically above the police here, and people are just trusting him to do the will of the Lord, type of thing. Right. So very, very cool film. And the death scenes, you know, are pretty intense for the late 60s. So, you know, when he goes and he starts killing these people who are suspected of witchcraft, I mean, there's hangings, all sorts of stuff. It's you know, it's pretty, for the time, pretty brutal, right? You know, so
a little more intense than maybe some of those Hammer movies, because, you know, like we were saying when we talked about those, all the monsters, anytime somebody died, you were just choked.
Yeah,
just like the Universal horror movies, right?
Yeah.
But with these, they, you know, some of the deaths and the way people were killed and the themes and stuff were a little more edgy and a little different from like the Hammer stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, they went a little further. Some of the, you know, Hammer, and this was a Tygon flick. So you had Hammer, Tygon, and Amicus were the big three film studios doing horror back at that time. And I think they were all trying to outdo each other a little bit. A lot of them used the same sets and used the same actors and all that kind of stuff. And I will say they all use the same terrible looking blood. You ever notice in a lot of these films, the blood is like
red.
It's like really bright red, like red, pink red paint. And it just looks terrible. I'm like, you guys just did a great kill scene and you're throwing that fake looking blood in there? Come on, man. But, other than that, great film. As
like the Italian horror movies, they were famous for the bright red blood.
And so much of it.
So that was great. Just so much of it. Just might as well go over the top. You're gonna throw a gallon in? Let's go for 2 or 3. Just put it all.
Yeah, who cares what color it is? Just keep pouring it on. Keep having it come out. Want more guts, more guts. Yeah, we don't care what color it is. Orange, purple.
Yeah, just go for it. Yep.
Oh boy.
And this was what year was Witchfinder?
68. 1960.
Okay, so they're all in the 60s because the Pendulum was around there, and then the one I'm talking about next is 64. So this is all in the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing a movie like 2-3 movies a year. This guy. I mean, it's just one after another after another. I mean, the 60s was like.
Yeah, and a lot of them are Roger Corman movies too.
Yes, yeah, he
like
did a lot of
Pendulum.
Yep.
The Pendulum was one. I forgot to mention that, and he's famous for doing a lot of horror movies. Roger Corman.
All right, what do you got next? Your third choice.
So next is a Roger Corman one. This is The Mask of the Red Death.
Love it.
So this is an interesting movie too. If you remember that, do you remember this one?
Oh yeah, I have that one.
So, this is 64, directed by Roger Corman and stars Vincent Price. So the story follows a prince who terrorizes a plague-ridden pleasantry while merrymaking in a lonely castle with his jaded courtiers. So that's your little summary there. So yeah, he's just this really mean, nasty tyrant, basically, that controls the countryside where he lives. He's got a lot of money. He lives in a lavish palace. And one of the townspeople get visited by the Red Death. And Red Death actually shows up in like a red cloak, like the Reaper, but it's called the Red Death. So when that Red Death shows up, the town or whoever they're around is taken over by this plague.
Yeah.
So when he goes to the town and he comes in contact with this girl, the plague goes to the town. Vincent Price's character, what was his name? Prince, what's his first name? Prince something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Escaped me right now. Prince something. So he is there when this happens. So he goes back to his castle and he kind of like banishes everybody from the town and keeps them all away. So anybody that tries to come to the castle for refuge, he pushed them away, said, I don't want you in here. He kills a lot of them. He takes the one girl from the village and her boyfriend and her father back to the castle, and he takes her as like his slave, basically. Wants her to be like by his side, and kind of pits the father and her boyfriend against each other in the jail. Remember that?
Yep.
Has them take out knives, and he wants them to like kill each other, but they don't do it. One of them turns the sword on him, and he impales him with the sword himself. So it's like he's taking all these people that are in the town, and he's just tormenting them, because he's in this place of power. But what you don't realize is when you're watching the story, his motivation for this is because he worships Satan. That's one of the subplots. There's this whole subplot of God and the devil and who do you believe in? Because the townspeople, they have their faith in God, and then he worships the devil. There's like an altar, and the one girl, do you remember the scene where the girl goes to the altar and she's praying to her Lord Satan, and she takes a cross and she turns it upside down and she burns it on her breast. So there's the town that's struggling with the Red Death, and there's Vincent Price and his castle where he's trying to keep people out of the castle, but he decides to do this party, this mask, he calls it.
Yeah.
He throws this big party with, again, more of these really lavish costumes and everything. So when the people come, that's when the Red Death actually shows up, and they don't know who he is. So the Red Death shows up, and things change for Vincent Price. Doesn't end the way he wants it.
No, not at all.
It doesn't. It's really cool. It's a very cool twist again, and some of the dialogue that Red Death says is really interesting as well.
Yeah, that whole last like half hour of that film is so well done.
Yeah, and even throughout the movie, when Vincent Price is talking about the Red Death and Satan, and when the villagers are talking about their belief in God, it's really interesting how their contrasting views go against each other, and what he believes in, and how he thinks it's right, and how he says that the world is chaos anyway. There's death, there's famine, there's war, there's pestilence, what have you, all these bad things happening. He said, so why bother believing in a God that you're not seeing? Whereas, as all these bad things are happening in the movie, he's like, well, where's God now?
Yep.
Right? If he's so great, then why is he letting all these bad things happen to you?
You got to wonder if is that one of the, because there was a strict kind of taboo on doing any horror films that dealt with Satanism for a while, and I know they lightened up on that like in the 60s. So you have to wonder, was that one of the first? Because I know you had Hammer did The Devil Rides Out, right, which was
right. And what year was that?
Oh man, I think that was late 60s. So was it like 65 or 66 where they started lightening up on that?
I forgot to mention that this is Edgar Allan Poe as well, like The Pit and the Pendulum.
Yeah.
Fall of the House of Usher. So this is based on a 1842 short story of the same name by Edgar Allan Poe.
Right.
So these are all adapted from Edgar Allan Poe poetry.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm a big fan of that movie as well.
Yeah, very unique ending. A lot of interesting religious philosophies going on, ideology that they're throwing around. I like when the Red Death shows up at the end again, and there's other deaths that show up.
Yep.
Right? You have to see that. You have to wait until the end to see that closing scene.
Yeah.
Because Red Death is symbolic of death, but you think of death, you think of the Black Robe, like the Reaper. But there's other forms of death. That's very cool too.
Yeah.
Different.
And once again, the ending of the film doesn't turn out too well for the bad guy, right?
It doesn't. He thinks it's gonna, because he thinks his Lord and Master is gonna be there for him, and it doesn't turn out well for him.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Poor Vincent Price.
Yeah, all these movies, Fall of House of Usher, The Haunted Palace, it just ends in it. I'm not going to give it away, but there's a lot of tragedy.
Yeah.
It's all, and a lot of it's in his head. He's always struggling in his head. All his characters are just these traumatized. It's all like that struggle within, between the good and the bad.
You mentioned The Fall of House of Usher, man. That's got a great ending.
Mm-hmm.
Love the final scene of that film. Anyway, that's a story for another day, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Edgar Allan Poe, we might as well just keep going on those themes, right? So my third and final choice for today is The Oblong Box.
I have not seen that in a while. I don't even remember what it's about.
I hadn't watched it in a number of years, and then I decided, I'm going to pick that one because I really wanted to watch it anyway. And I figured, I could pick any of them. Scream and Scream Again is a good one too. Fall of the House of Usher. There's so many. The Fly. There's so many great films, but I really wanted to pick The Oblong Box because I hadn't seen it in a while. I'm like, you know what? I want to watch that. I want to talk about it. So again, another Edgar Allan Poe. Themes in this particular film. So this has to do with the kind of like voodoo. So basically, you got two main characters. You got Vincent Price's character and his brother and his older brother, who go to Africa on some kind of like expedition, right? And they wind up like disturbing some stuff over there that they shouldn't, right? So the brother winds up getting like kind of not like a curse, but he winds up getting disfigured based on some voodoo stuff that like a voodoo curse that's thrown on him. And he's just a mess, and his whole psyche has changed. He becomes like angry and mad. He's disfigured now, whatever. So they wind up coming back from Africa, and they go back because they're rich and all this kind of stuff. So they go back to the castle where it is they live. And the younger brother, who's Vincent Price's character, is like, he's like terrified of his brother. His brother is, angry and violent and all this kind of stuff. He's just all disfigured. So he winds up like kind of like chaining him up in a room in this mansion, and nobody can go see him or anything like that. He basically feeds him, he takes care of him, but he doesn't want him going out into the public, so to speak, right? And so long story short is the brother, who's kind of chained up here and kept kind of like captive, he winds up like faking his own death, right? So they fakes his own death. They put him in the Oblong Box, which is basically like a casket type of thing, and they bury him. but it turns out that because he faked his own death, he actually wasn't dead when they buried him. They buried him alive. So again, this whole buried alive thing, which Poe dipped in quite a bit. So, without giving too much of the story away, he actually winds up coming back to life, and he wears this really creepy looking red, like hood, like facial covering throughout most of this movie. And again, going back to this whole thing about people who had wronged him prior, so he goes on this rampage and he starts going into the town and killing people. People start dying left and right, and they're like, well, who's killing all these people? And then Vincent Price eventually finds out that his brother's actually not dead. So who was it that they put, who was that was put into the box, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just a really cool movie. And then to top it all off, you got to throw in Christopher Lee, who's in this film too. So you got these two heavyweights, and Christopher Lee played this like scientist who is almost like a Dr. Frankenstein, who's dabbling with all sorts of stuff that he shouldn't be. And he winds up getting in touch with the brother, Sir Frederick, and Sir Frederick convinces him to help him to do his, the stuff that he's doing, whatever. And so you got the two of them plotting all this crap. The only thing about this movie that I don't like, it's a great film, is that you've got Christopher Lee and Vincent Price, and they're in the same film, and they're not in any scenes together at all.
Oh,
and I'm like, that's like a complete missed opportunity. Christopher Lee is great in this film as well. But it's almost like here, like Christopher Lee, Vincent Price is he's got top billing, but he's not really the star. The actual star is his brother, who's running around in the hood, the mask the whole time, and killing people and stuff like that. But Lee and Price both play really strong supporting roles, and it's almost like the film is like the three of them are actually the main focus, but there's no one that really shines more than the other. But it's and there's a really cool twist at the end of the film where the two brothers kind of combat each other. Okay. Price finds out that his brother's still alive, all this kind of stuff. And then, you watch the very, very end and you're kind of like, well, wait a second, I didn't see that coming, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
It ties into the whole sort of voodoo supernatural thing that kind of the whole movie started on. So really cool film, kind of creepy. Again, some really cool death scenes. You got a bit of nudity and all that kind of stuff. And so, a little bit of everything. And again, this is late 60s. So this one was 1969. This was actually shot a year after Witchfinder General, and also originally directed by the same guy who had directed Witchfinder General, but then he got hold on, I'll get you his name in a minute. He had all sorts of problems. Michael Reeves. So Michael Reeves was also directing the Oblong Box, and then he got sick during the filming of it. They brought someone else in, and I believe Michael Reeves died like not long after or something like that. So, but yeah, really cool film, the Oblong Box. I definitely, if you haven't seen it, Rich, check it out. Or haven't seen it in a while.
It's been a while.
It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool film. And it's
any blood in it, or it's one of those bloodless ones?
Oh no, there's blood in it. Yeah. It's not really gory, but there's plenty of killings.
Yeah, like the Pendulum, there's really no blood in it. The Mask of the Red Death has some blood in it, and Dr. Phibes has some blood in there as well.
Cool. Yeah, there's a good amount of violence in this, which is pretty cool. And it's kind of weird when you say that. There's a lot of violence in this. It's really cool. The more the better, right? But that's what we love about horror.
But for the 60s, like we're saying, like when we were talking about the Hammer movies too, there was a little more blood than you would see in like the Universal movies, but not a lot of it. Even with the Edgar Allan Poe movies that Roger Corman did, there's some blood here and there, but you're not getting a lot of it until, I guess, the 70s, right?
Yeah, the 70s
really started throwing.
Yeah,
you started getting some.
It's really cool when you kind of take a look back at the history of horror films and horror cinema. That what was really shocking in the 40s and 50s is actually really tame by today's standards, right? And then you look in what was happening in the 60s. So all these films that we're talking about, most of which were done in the 60s, at the time, we're looking at it now. We're like, oh, not too bloody, maybe a couple of hangings, maybe hands chopped off, some blood here and there, choking, all that kind of stuff. Kind of tame for us now, based on what we've seen later on. But for the time, that was pretty extreme, right?
Yeah. And then when you look at it compared to how the 70s changed, and you see something like The Exorcist or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or Dawn of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, those movies, that's when they really started throwing in the blood.
Yeah. And then you bring the 80s into it, you know, with the guys like Fulci and Argento, and all of a sudden it's like you add all that stuff together, it doesn't equal what those guys were doing, right?
Yeah, then you got to wear like a raincoat when you're watching the movie because there's blood flying everywhere.
When I did with Chris Allen, when I did that Italian horror show a couple of weeks ago, I rewatched City of the Living Dead. I haven't seen it in years, and I remember when I saw that originally, I was taken aback by like just how like over the top gory it is. And then I watched it again recently. Like, man, this is just as gory as I remember it. It's out of control.
Is that the one when the zombie fights the shark?
No, that's from actually Zombie. That's from the Zombie. That's great too.
Okay.
That's a gore fest. Yeah. Oh man, these movies they're so gory. It's crazy.
That's an interesting. What's that?
They're not really scary, but they're just like so disturbing and so over the top, just gross.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting topic for a show, the 70s, to see how it went from the 60s into the 70s and what the movie style kind of changed into.
Like production techniques and the kind of the way they handle the horrific elements, you mean? Yeah. Because I think that from the 70s to the 80s, it really amped up quite a bit. You can almost kind of see it coming, right? Based on what we saw in the late 60s moving into the 70s. Yeah.
Right. But the 60s, like this stuff we were saying, is very classy and very, very like black and white, but an updated version of it. But then when you get into the 70s, it got grittier with like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? It was just like
Massacre, Last House on the Left, and I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah, grindhouse, bare bones horror movies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. Amityville Horror, was very. It wasn't gritty. It was just. It felt like you were in the home. It didn't feel like you were in the. Yeah.
Yeah. I love talking about horror.
Decade.
Talking about horror movies, you just go in all these different directions. It's amazing.
I know. Awesome.
All right, so there you got 6 recommendations of some classic Vincent Price films. I don't know about you, Rich, but I'm ready to do a part 2 of this. So,
yeah, and this is a great set to get. Like I said, if you can get it on Blu-ray from Scream Factory.
Yeah.
Like we were saying, you get the Pendulum, Mask of the Red Death, The Haunted Palace, Fall of the House of Usher, The Abominable Dr. Phibes, and what you're talking about, Witchfinder General.
Yeah.
All in one set.
How many discs come in that set?
You got a 2-on-1, another 2-on-1, and then 2 singles.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that.
So it's nice menus too.
Yeah.
To put some work into the menus as well. They're not like, sometimes they're really chintzy and cheesy and there's no options. These actually have some options, and you can go to the audio settings and a couple other things.
Cool.
So they're well done.
Yeah, I'm sure the quality is amazing, and it takes up a lot less room on the shelf than all the ones that I have.
Right, and you get a booklet too. Like I said,
space is a thing these days, right?
I know, and you get a booklet too as well.
Yeah, I love that.
A little bit of summary of everything, and like I was showing you before, you get the posters, the little mini posters, which are really sharp.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I dig it. All right. Awesome. All right. So everybody watching, let us know what you think of these films, and pick out some of your favorite Vincent Price films. Like I said, I think we have plenty of ammo to do a part 2 of this, because I love Vincent Price. I love his films, and there's plenty more where these came from.
Right.
So,
and I like the 70s topic. I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Something related to the 70s. Something with 70s horror, right?
All right. Well, we'll chat about that. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, and more like an analysis of kind of the 60s going into the 70s, and maybe with some examples of films that. All right. We'll flesh that idea out. So we'll do it. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. I want to thank Rich Catino for once again coming on and helping out with some classic horror film discussion here. This was a fun one. We'll be seeing him on the show again real soon. And Rich, you want to give some links before we let you go?
Sure. I'm from metalasylum.net, Brave Words Magazine, the Metal Hall of Fame, and doing the Monsters Den, as well as doing some of our top 10 album rankings or catalog rankings too at Sea of Tranquility, right?
That's right. Absolutely. So, all right, everybody, we'll have a good evening, and we'll probably see you tomorrow. For Rich Catino, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody.
Thanks again.